That was a really, I guess, monumental point in my life as far as experiencing breath work. It was really a profound experience, intense experience. A lot of big words here because it's the best way I can describe how the practice of connecting to my breath, which we do all day, right? We breathe all day without having to think about it. But when we can bring awareness and attune to the breath, and we can change the breath with purpose and with intention, the patterns of the breath, we can utilize those patterns to start to evoke and create change in our health, in our emotional well-being, in our sleep patterns. So, yeah, in our relationships with ourselves and other people. So it became this really, really deep exploration for me.
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that's dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand that the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. This season is devoted to the power of empathy in education. Meet 12 visionary leaders from the Transformative Educational Leadership Fellowship Program and learn how they are bringing meaningful change to their schools. You won't want to miss a single episode, so hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today, I'm joined by Nichole Fuller, who's an art teacher and Reiki practitioner who has dedicated 20 plus years of her life to the field of education and art education and as a guide in mindfulness, healing, and personal growth. Nichole has spent more than half of her career exploring and integrating practices that nurture the mind and the soul. Her journey has led her to study breathwork, yoga, teaching for artistic behavior, mindfulness for educators, self-care, social-emotional learning, trauma-informed instruction, meditation, as I mentioned, Reiki, Thai body work, mindful movement, intuitive painting, and most recently, transformative educational leadership. She brings this wealth of knowledge into everything that she does, whether it's creating opportunities in the classroom that foster artistic self-reflection and emotional literacy, or curating group and private wellness experiences for her community and beyond. So this season, I'm exploring the power of empathy in education, and I've invited Nichole to be a guest because that's precisely what she practices and exemplifies. So welcome to the show, Nichole.
Wow, thank you so much for that beautiful welcome.
It's
I'm
great to
so,
have you. It's so great to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation for so long because you are a breathwork practitioner, and I did my first breathwork workshop a few months ago, and I'm really, 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 really excited to understand more about this and share it with the world. So, yeah, I'm really going to indulge in this conversation a little bit, but I think it might be helpful beyond the really, wide variety of things that you've done within the space of education, to know maybe a little bit more about you and maybe what brought you to the work that you do. Do you want to fill in some blanks?
sure. I guess I'll start with an interesting tidbit about me is that I grew up in a state park. So I was I was part of a family who lived there, the only family who lived there year round. And we had people coming and going during the summer season. In the winter, it was really quite quiet. But I had the woods around me and the water right nearby. So that's always been a part of who I am and has been instilled in me just a love of nature and a connectedness to nature and to other people, So I think that's always played a part in my backstory. If I think back to what really led me to this point, the first tipping point in my life, I think back to a little over a decade ago, about 12 years ago, when I was at a point. I had graduated high school, I went to college, I got my bachelor's, I got my master's, I did the thing I thought I was supposed to do, I got married, I started having babies, and here I was with a couple of small children. I was teaching art, I had a great job, and something was missing. I started really feeling a yearning to know myself, to know life was about, what I was all about, and what I liked. Because I found myself doing a lot of things for other people. So as a mom, I'm constantly thinking about what my kids need. And as a partner, I'm thinking about what does my spouse need? What does my family need? And I started asking the question, what do I need? And I didn't know. So I just started digging and doing some things. I tried horseback riding lessons. I dabbled in some, a few different things, and I ended up at a yoga class. And that yoga class turned into a trip to Costa Rica for a 3-week immersion for my yoga teacher training. And that was my first experience with breakthrough breath work. And the catalyst to me going down a whole bunch of different rabbit holes and exploring a lot of different modalities.
See, I'm so glad I asked the question, and I love this question because look at that. I'm wondering if somebody who's listening can relate, or maybe somebody's feeling a nudge to sort of explore, saying like, "Oh, that sounds super interesting." So, wow, more complexity to you. I love it. Okay. So, in sharing your backstory, you mentioned breath work. You talked about it just now. I really want to understand breath work better. Um, so maybe you can take us back to you as a learner of breath work and what you found fascinating and kind of like, oh, whoa, whoa, and what it opened up for you. And then we can talk about what you sort of continued to learn and now as a practitioner want to share.
Sure, I will do my best to consolidate. So if I get long-winded, let me know. But at that point in Costa Rica, I was experiencing this first taste of breath work. And I'll be honest, I laid there on the floor in the jungle in Costa Rica with a bunch of other people there for the teacher training. And I laid there going, what's this? And I was in my head and I was curious and I was wondering and paying attention to what was happening to other people around me and wondering, wanting answers to why I was feeling the way I was feeling, like what's going on here. And so I didn't really allow myself to experience breath work fully because I was really in my head a lot at that time, trying to just get answers for myself. So fast forward about that was like 2013. So fast forward to 2018, 5 years beyond that. In between, I go back and I'm doing some yoga for kids, taking some classes with that. I'm incorporating what I've learned and experienced with my yoga teacher training in my classroom. So I'm bringing those things back. I'm incorporating it into my life. And then I'll fast forward to 2017, I experienced a huge loss in my life. And it was really difficult for me. So at that point, got reconnected with my yoga teacher from Costa Rica, and she was doing a breathwork immersion teacher training. It was a week-long immersion in the Catskills. And so I said, well, I'm going to sign me up. I'm going to go and check this out. And it was there that I experienced a full breathwork session, many of them, but it was there that I had my first breakthrough for myself. And I was able to excavate a lot of really deep, stuck emotion. I was able to move it. And I won't say in that moment I was able to heal it, but I was able to start the healing process. And I was also able to witness others do the same thing. And so for me, that was like, wow, amazing to not only experience, but to witness. And there was no turning back at that point. This was something that I knew in some way. I didn't know to what capacity, but I knew that I had to continue to explore. So that was a really, I guess, monumental point in my life as far as experiencing breath work. It was really a profound experience, intense experience. A lot of big words here because it's the best way I can describe how the practice of connecting to my breath, which we do all day, right? We breathe all day without having to think about it. But when we can bring awareness and attune to the breath, and we can change the breath with purpose and with intention, the patterns of the breath, we can utilize those patterns to start to evoke and create change in our health, in our emotional well-being, in our sleep patterns. So, you know, yeah, and in our relationships with ourselves and other people. So it's just, it became this really, really deep exploration for me at that point.
So, 6 months ago, I don't think I'd ever even heard of breath work. Like, if I heard it, I would have thought like it would be part of maybe like a yoga class that you're doing like some kind of specific kind of breathing, whether it's like holding your nostrils or whatever. And I'll tell you how I came about it. I'm not on social media a lot. I don't doom scroll typically, but the algorithms put things in front of you as you're, scrolling. And I came across this ad for breathwork. And I promise you, when I say I never open ads, like I never open ads. And I do not know why I opened this ad. And I'm watching this video about this guy. He's like 6'7" and he's traveling around the world. And he was a former athlete and he had a major injury. He was paralyzed for a year. He tried every possible way of healing. People were sending him to psychedelics. They were saying that it's not a physical issue, that there's trauma in your cells. You have to work through the trauma. And he tried a bunch of things because he was actually really depressed and experiencing suicidal ideation, and finally discovered breath work and has now become a facilitator himself. So this is his backstory. I've learned only after the fact about him because he shared a little bit. But the video itself has like people listening, like laying down with pillows, their eyes, covered, and they're having these like wailing moments. And I'm just like watching this and it's all kind of over the top. But then I went to his website, I did a little bit more reading, trying to like understand what it's about. And I'm a big, I don't know. I just like self-development stuff. And I was just attracted to like, I'm going to give this a shot. He's coming to Montreal and my husband was willing to go. Now, I didn't have a huge, profound experience in what's it called? Hypothyropic, or what's the word for like when you're
Hypertrophic breath work, is that what you did?
yeah, hypertropic breath work, right. But my husband actually had like really deep visions. He had conversations with his deceased dad. Like it was just meaningful. And I saw people weeping openly. And then the way the entire session came to a close, like you just felt like universal love. And I was just quite something. So I believe what you're saying, having done it, but I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't experienced it. So I wonder, instead of talking about it from a lived experience, like, can you share a little bit about what breath work, why it is successful at, opening things up?
Yeah, so basically it just gets into our nervous system and it helps to regulate the nervous system. And so when we are taking a breath in and we are exhaling, we can take the breath in a certain way to help regulate the nervous system, either more geared towards the sympathetic side, that fight flight response, or we can go to the parasympathetic side of the nervous system where we can be rest digest, right? So depending on how we are breathing, we can use the breath to bring us into a state of arousal, or we can bring us into a state of rest, right? So if you probably experienced, I'm guessing in your breathwork session, you may have experienced a period of time where you were doing a conscious connected circular breathing, where you were breathing in and out and in and out and in and out, and you were getting rid of that pause at the top and at the bottom. And so what that was doing, it was bringing you in that arousal state. And so that's elevating, that's actually changing the internal parts of the body. Like that's changing what's happening in the chemistry of the body. You are reprogramming the body and the biology, and you are retraining your nervous system and how to respond. So that's another piece is you might notice that people talk about responding over reacting. And so when we can balance our nervous system out, do a better job of responding to situations rather than just that knee-jerk reaction. And so that practice of the breath and how to manipulate the breath can help us intentionally, with intention, move into a state of that sympathetic side of our nervous system, and with intention, move ourselves back out of it. Right. So we slow the breathing down and we regulate.
This is mind blowing for me because one of the things that I've noticed about myself is that I knew it because I could feel it in my chest that I shallow breathe.
And it became so obvious to me when I went away for 10 days and I did a silent meditation retreat. I was alone for, I mean, well, obviously with other people, but like far away from my family and friends. I didn't have access to my phone. There was no communication for 10 days. And there was like, 3 times a day, I was sitting in a room with other people meditating, and then most of the time alone. And I slept really well for 3 days. I felt initially like I was on vacation. And then I went for long walks. And all of a sudden, I was conscious of how deep down in my stomach my breath was going. And I was like, oh, I haven't been breathing for years. And now that I'm back and I'm in like the rush of life, I feel it back. I feel my I guess my diaphragm completely contracted. So you're saying that if I become more conscious of my breathing, I can take away some stress from my nervous system. What do I have to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it can be as simple of really practicing and bringing in something called the parasympathetic sigh. Like, so we want to like take a breath in that's quick, and then so we do it all the time. We probably do it out of frustration.
Hmm.
Right? So if we're moving into and having the sigh, we're releasing. Another thing you can do is if you're sitting here, if you take a breath, like you mentioned, expand the belly. Allow the belly to expand as you're breathing in. Don't hold it in, especially as women. We're kind of programmed to hold in, right? To hold, especially in our belly. We're going to hold it in, keep everything tight, but let it expand. Send the breath deeper, fill fully, instead of breathing into the shoulder space. We breathe into just the shoulder and the upper body, we're going to create tension there. And so, just something we can do during the day, sitting at the desk, is just bring our awareness to the breath, send the breath into the belly, allow the belly to expand. And that's really something so simple that we can do throughout our day to shift whatever is present with us. If we're feeling stressed out, a little tense, breathe into the belly. Easy
I
peasy.
love this. And for people who are listening or watching, I hope you're following along and doing this as well. And I'm going to try to be super conscious of my breath throughout our conversation. And if you can, Nichole, afterwards, send me any resources that you think are really useful for any of the things that we covered today in the conversation. I'll put them in the show notes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, because this is a podcast about empathy, I wonder, do you have anything to say about how breath work increased your capacity for empathy? Like, does it?
100%.
Really?
And this is my take. I'm not the expert on empathy as you are. This is my take on how, for me, the practice of breath work has absolutely increased my capacity for empathy. The basis of breath work, the foundation of breath work, is really about presence and self-awareness. And so we're connecting to the breath, we're connecting to this moment right now. Because in this moment, in this breath, this is where we are in this present moment, right? So presence. We are also becoming more self-aware as we are practicing breath work. So we're becoming aware of the body, not just the breath, but the whole body. We start to explore the whole body in the breath. How is the body feeling? How are my shoulders feeling? Maybe I'm only breathing into my body this far, and I'm creating some tension and some lifting in my shoulders. I'm becoming aware of this now. So now I'm breathing and I'm expanding the belly. I'm dropping my shoulders. I'm releasing some tension in my shoulders. I'm becoming aware of my body. And this is just a little piece, right, of the big picture. So I'm becoming self-aware. I'm becoming more present. And now because I can really tune into my own emotions, I can help move my own emotions. It just opens my capacity now to recognize the emotions that others hold, the feelings that others hold, the experiences that other people have had. I fully believe that when we strip away all of this on the outside and we look inward, where we can always connect is on an emotional level. We all feel pain. We all feel anger. We all feel sadness. We all feel love, right? We feel these emotions. And so, in the emotion of moving through the breath work, and we're bringing these emotions up, we're really experiencing them. We are understanding what they mean. We are understanding how we hold them in our bodies, how we hold them in our hearts and in our minds. When we understand ourselves, we can better understand other people. If we are blind to what we are even moving through, and we are not attuned to our own emotions and our own feelings, it can really keep us from connecting with other people. This is my experience, that once I started to explore my own underlying traumas, my own the depths of my own experiences, and I started bringing those up and elevating those and becoming aware and moving through them. My teacher would always say the only way out is through, right? So as we're moving through all of these things, we can then see it in other people. So we see it in ourselves first, and then we can start to recognize, see it in other people, and walk the walk that they are walking through alongside of them. So this is, I hope I explained that well. This is the way I feel like we really connect, and it helps us become more empathetic towards others.
Two stories come up immediate when you're talking about that. One is I have had a couple of Zoom calls with these two women. We're working on something together, and the conversation is like really dynamic and porous and open and creative. The first couple times we met, and then most recently, I didn't sleep well. I was stressed on time, and like I needed to push through the agenda fast. And I felt like my cadence was different. Like I just didn't have the aperture to like, chit chat and whatnot, but I actually named it. I recognized it in myself. I was like, this is where I'm at right now. And apologies that I can't, be in the zone with you as we have been in the past. That comes up for me. So having that self-awareness, but other people recognizing in me when I'm wound up and I don't know it. So here's another story. Um, Recently, my mom had a fall. She fell back on her head on the sidewalk in downtown Montreal. She's 83 years old. She was out with my daughter, and I was out for Valentine's with my husband. And so some good Samaritans on the street, like at 10:30 at night, after this concert, were like taking care of my mom, and immediately a big swelling started. They called 911, and they reached out, and we didn't answer right away because we were on a date. And then it wasn't until like two or three times we were like, oh my God, something's gone wrong. And sure enough, I'm speaking to this woman saying, your mom's being ambulanced to the emergency. I was like, ah. So that happened. And I stayed all overnight with my mom to get tested. Thankfully, she's good. Everything's fine. But on just 2 hours of sleep, I had to go into like something that I was part of and something that you were part of, a little retreat for 4 hours. And this was 4 days in a row. And I didn't have any time to integrate how scary that had been for me. And I just kept going through the motions. And by the time day 3 or 4 came, I still hadn't like really given myself permission to like just breathe out, like just kind of like, you know, share how traumatic that had been. And so we were doing little group work, and I was talking about like whatever was going on in my life with a totally different prompt. And I wasn't even talking about my mom. And the woman who was holding space for me, who knew about my mom, but just like a one-liner, said, Anita, how's your mom? Like, how is she? And it took my breath away. And I just like started to cry. And I didn't realize how much I needed that cry. And she recognized that I was so wound up and that I just needed to kind of expunge that. And it was such a big learning for me because now I can recognize if somebody is talking at me fast, there's something bigger going on behind the scenes than I'm aware of. And like maybe I can say, hey, how you doing over there?
Yeah, I definitely see that we can connect in that way in our lived experiences. But if we're pushing those lived experiences aside and not feeling them, it can be really difficult to connect with another person's lived experience. So thank you for sharing that. That's really
Mm.
beautiful that you were able to take your one experience with the breath and apply it to a few different situations that you've already shared. So imagine working with the breath and in engaging in that kind of deep conversation with yourself on a regular basis, and the ripple effect that that can have in the world.
And you, speaking from experience, have done a lot of healing as a result of this work.
I don't hesitate to tell people that breathwork saved my life.
Really?
Really. I share that it was dis-ease every time that brought me back to breathwork, that nudged me to a new level. So I shared with you the first time that, I had this loss of identity. I went to Costa Rica. Then I lost my brother in 2017. I went to breathwork facilitator training. Um, Fast forward through, COVID, and my family experienced a really difficult situation during that time. And I was lucky enough that I was still in contact with my yoga teacher from back in 2013, which was also my breathwork teacher in 2018, 2019. And she opened up a women's circle that was all virtual. And so I started engaging in that, and I would engage in that 2 or 3 times a week. And that was when magic happened, for lack of a better term, because not only did it help me move through a lot of emotional situations, challenging emotional situations that I was holding, it allowed me an opportunity by doing that work to discover who I am, to find value in all that I have to offer, the shadow sides and the light sides. And that's really important. It was really important for me to embrace all of who I am, the stuff that's a little scary, the stuff that we don't share with everybody, um, and acknowledge and embrace the awesomeness that I am too, right? The parts of me that I'm like really proud of, and be able to even say that I'm proud of myself. I wasn't doing that prior. Like I was like, I'm not allowed to be proud of myself. I have too much shame, blame, and baggage back there. There's no room for feeling proud. There's no room for expanding beyond what I am now. But in the practice, I found the space. With every breath, there is an opportunity to create space, and then decide how to move into it. So through the practice, created a lot of space. I moved into the spaces. I grew as a human being. I grew in my capacity for empathy. And at some point it clicked in me where I decided, I have to share it. It's like tasting this really great dessert or something, and you want to tell all your friends, you got to go try it. This is where I'm at. Like, I want everybody to try it because I believe in it that much. And when I say that it saved my life, it was because I got to a point where I don't know if there was a point where I really wanted to end my life, but I didn't feel like maybe my life was worth living. I don't know, there was a moment where I wasn't sure, and I didn't have the capacity to understand that it was worth living at one point in time. I wasn't sure. There was a lot of questioning there. So yeah, I say it saved my life because not only did it keep me here, but the quality just expanded so much.
I love that. And I'm thinking this is a perfect opportunity for me to ask, because you're talking about things that you've celebrated about yourself. I bet you the painting behind you, for those who are watching, is one of yours. I would love for you to share what that painting is about for just a moment, and maybe you could describe it for those who are listening.
Well, yeah. So on the side of the image closest to me, that's me. And you'll see there a raven and a dove, and you'll see some crystals and flowers and moons, particularly lotus flowers. And the story of the lotus is really important to me because it's all about moving through the mud and getting through those really difficult opportunities that arise in our lives so that we are reaching the surface to the light, right? That the journey isn't always beautiful and pristine. It's messy. Life is messy. And it actually requires the mess to grow and blossom into the most beautiful lotus, right? So the lotus doesn't blossom without the murky mud beneath it. And so that's really important to me. And that's a reminder to myself. And you'll see the raven and the dove is really that idea of holding that duality of that darkness in me and the light in myself and embracing all of it. And so they're kind of, staring at each other like, yeah, I see you, because feeling seen, heard, and valued is a core structure for me, a core need for me. And I need it as much for others to see me, hear me, and value me, but I first need it for myself. And so creating this painting was during the series of the Women's Circle, and when I was practicing breath work on a regular basis, and I was really stepping into who I was as a woman.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I hope those listening are gonna get curious and join us on YouTube. Um, because we've talked about breath work, but then, when I was introducing you, we covered like a lot of different modalities that you've been exposed to. We won't be able to get through all of it, but I just wonder if there's one that's alive for you to talk about. I don't know where to start, like, Reiki, trauma-informed instruction, mindful movement, intuitive painting, maybe, like anything else that you want to talk about?
Well, I think I'll pull in some of the things in education and how I utilize breath work and trauma informed instruction, mindfulness in the art room. So, it's a great opportunity. It's really a beautiful canvas, pun intended, for us to be able to explore these modalities. So, the students, more recently, I did a lesson with the students where I asked them to explore emotion through abstract art, and they got to choose 3 different emotions. And once they chose their emotion, they created a painting or a drawing that expressed that emotion only using colors and mark making. So we talked a lot about what do these colors mean to you? What do they signify to you? And it was really remarkable, the response that I got from the students. It was remarkable on one hand because some of the students couldn't relate to the emotions. They didn't understand what the emotion was. And so we had to have some really deep, meaningful conversations about emotion. And later, we also got to explore students' personal experiences and how those emotions related to them. And they got to tell personal stories and connect with each other through, again, that space of emotion where we can all connect. So that was a really beautiful experience. And that's just one way that I bring the practice of, this trauma informed approach. We also use breath work in the class. So they're kids, they come in dysregulated most of the time. And so we'll start a class with some regulation techniques with breath work. We'll end a class that way as we're transitioning into the next space they're going to be moved to. So it's just a really beautiful thing to be able to bring some of the things that I've learned for myself and introduce them to students at a young age. I wish I had access to these things when I was a kid, right? How different would the world be if we were starting a foundation of this self-awareness, presence, acceptance, and empathy?
I really resonate with that, like really, yeah, powerfully. And I'm glad to see it starting to happen. There's mindfulness in schools and social emotional learning. It's starting to, although there's backlash towards it now too, especially in your country. I want to talk a little bit about, or maybe dig a little bit about what you curate group and private wellness opportunities. Like, what does that mean exactly?
So at school, I have done some group opportunities after school for we get together and we'll do some mindful movement, we'll do some breath work, and just help to support the teachers there to have an opportunity for self-care. And in my home, I do private breathwork sessions. So somebody can come in and see me and we'll have a breathwork session that's curated specifically to what they want to work on. I also do a women's wellness event once a month in my home where we come together and I have a group of 7 to 12 women just because I don't have space for more, but hopefully someday. And we get together and we talk about nutrition and we talk about what is alive for us and we share and we create a container where we can connect. We create a container where we can be supported and heard and seen and valued. All of those core things that are really important to me. And I also do sessions where you can have me. I'll come to your somebody's home and get together a group of people, and I'll do a private breathwork session in a small group format as well in your own home. So just a few different ways that I try to get out there and share the work with as many people as I can.
And where are you located for those who might be listening?
I am located in a tiny little town in northern New York called Mansville.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I'm about an hour north of Syracuse, New York. Most people know where that is.
Now, you mentioned teachers and self-care. I would love to explore that for a minute because part of my interest in doing this series on empathy and education is for this to be a space for teachers to come and hang out with other educators and just find their peeps and maybe slow down and take a breath, pun intended. What are you seeing as an educator in terms of how fraught the nervous system is within the entire education system and what we need to do to support one another and support ourselves?
I see a lot. I think one of the things we have to be really careful about in education is that we aren't sending a message to educators to go do self-care and not providing opportunity for it.
Hmm.
This happens a lot. We put more and more and more on the plate of the teacher and expect more and more. And then we say, go take care of yourself. And then we give them more and more. We aren't necessarily always creating the opportunity for self-care. We aren't always creating the opportunity for these teachers to be seen, heard, and valued within their school system. But I think it's really important that we change the dialogue a little bit from I want you to take care of yourself and I'm going to provide you with this opportunity. I'd rather hear things like that because that's one of the things that I hear too often from teachers is that I'm supposed to go take care of myself, but when am I supposed to find the time to do that? How am I supposed to do it? And the other piece that I would say is there are a lot of LCL programs being implemented in school districts, and all too often they're being handed a curriculum for SEL and told, here, do this curriculum with your students. And the teachers are doing their best with it, what they've been given. But from my personal experience and my professional experience, I see value in implementing the program with staff first. So it's about building a foundation. And if we can build a foundation with administration, with staff, embodying these practices, learning from these practices, understanding them because we've done them ourselves, then we are going to be able to provide the opportunity to our students in a more authentic way. And it's just going to be that much more impactful. So there's a lot that can happen, a lot of opportunity here. And I think that we just need to start being willing to see the bigger picture and understanding it's going to take time and build from the foundation that's necessary for success
So what do you
instead of
think?
skipping over.
And yeah, absolutely. So what do you think the big misconception is? Let's do some myth busting. So everybody's been to school, right? So we all have this opinion about like we know what school's about and we know how teachers should be and stuff like that. Why is being an educator in a classroom with people who are learning something, what myth can we bust about what that space holds and what is required of teachers? Okay, so just for example, as you're thinking about an answer, I went to my daughter's third grade class yesterday. Now, granted, next week is spring break, so maybe there's a little bit of extra energy in the space, but two classrooms, the English class and the French, were combined. So 40 students in one classroom, two teachers and me. And I was surprised my daughter. She didn't know I was coming, and it was fun. And I had an hour with them, and I got out of the hour. It went super well. my daughter was even proud to like hug me afterwards because like I didn't embarrass her, which is all good. But I walked out of there like, oh my God, people do that for the entire day for 200 days a year? That's insanity. I could never do it. So please tell me, what do you like, champion the cause for the educator that we lay people need to understand about the work you're doing?
I think that one of the things I would say that we need to understand is there's this thing called the window of tolerance. We
Hmm.
all have it. And we show up sometimes with our window of tolerance wide open. Okay. But sometimes we show up and our window of tolerance is already, it's here, right? It's already halfway shut or maybe a little bit more because life happens and we are moving through our days with whatever has happened in our personal lives. And while we try our very best to leave those things aside in the professional world, sometimes we come into a space with our window of tolerance not wide open. And so when we come into a space and then we have a classroom of students, as you witnessed here firsthand, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of energy moving. Sometimes there are students in this space who don't know how to regulate themselves. They don't have the skill sets to come into a space with other, a lot of other human beings, a lot of other peers, and understand the social constructs that are required in the space to be successful. They don't know how to regulate their own little tiny bodies, and they're coming in with their own window of tolerance that may already be slammed right shut. So I think it's really important for us, and speaking of empathy, to understand what everybody is bringing to the plate, that we are all coming into our days, whether it's in a classroom or in a board meeting, with our own window of tolerance. And not to say that we don't have to act in a professional way, but if we can start understanding that these teachers that are dealing with 20 plus little people with their own little windows of tolerance that are oftentimes not regulated, that's a big ask. And not only are we trying to teach them math and science and social studies and whatever is going ELA, whatever else is going on in the class, but we're doing crafts with them. We are trying to teach them how to use the bathroom. We are trying to teach them how to blow their nose and tie their sneakers and right? It goes on and on and on. So I would just ask, like, hold these educators in a space of empathy, right? To have empathy for these people who are stepping into a place with your kids with a heart that is there to love them and care for them and teach them and be there, but that's also a human being.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked that question. That was a solid answer. Woo, woo. Take one for the team. All right. So, this has been delightful, and I'm sad to see we're at the end of the conversation, but I always end with one question, the same question of all my guests. So here goes. Um, Nichole, can you think of a time in your life when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you?
I can think of so many times. I think I'll package it up in saying that, going back to the stories I've told you about, my journey to getting to this point, if it weren't for the people that showed up during those times to embrace me when I couldn't embrace myself, to see me when I couldn't see myself,
Hmm.
to value me when I didn't value myself, because they had taken the time to do the work to be able to show up,
Hmm.
uh, you know, I owe them a whole lot of gratitude.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of people. So it's there, I do have belief that there's so much good in the world because I've seen it firsthand. It's guided me to this point, to this place of healing and a desire to share the work with other people and show up in the same capacity for them.
And that's a super beautiful answer. And I'm going to ask a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Can you think of a specific moment?
You want me to be specific? You want me to give you the deets?
I want you to dip into the memory. We're going to go there with you.
go there. Okay. I'm going to hand this to probably the deepest form of empathy that I've experienced from my husband, because we are polar opposite human beings.
Okay.
And he's been a witness to all of this.
Mm.
And he has supported my growth, my expansion. I have changed from being one person to someone different over the course of the last 12 years.
Mm.
And I don't think you can hold space for somebody, be in relationship with somebody, and love somebody to the depth that he loves me without offering them a whole lot of empathy. So when I lost my brother, when our family went through a really difficult experience, when I felt like I had a loss of identity, all those moments, it wasn't always pretty, but there was always space for me to continue to grow. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
Ah,
That better?
thank you for indulging that. I'm sure that there are people listening and watching that are just so grateful to hear you say that. And I love this question because I never know the story. And no matter what story I hear, it's always an opportunity for me to reflect on how I can turn up the volume of empathy in my life. And the prism through which I just saw your share is how important it is to hold space for others, and that is an empathic action as well. And to honor an evolution and to bear witness, like all of those words. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful conversation.
It has been, and here we are at the end. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody who has been watching and listening, and we will see you next week at Purposeful.
If you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Post the link to your socials and hit the subscribe button now. The world needs more empathy, and you have an important role to play.